Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ujjwal Patel. I'm a data platform engineer at Microsoft. I've been working with Microsoft from last 5.5 years, sorry, and worked across various technologies like SharePoint Online development, on-premise, SQL on-premise, Azure, and PaaS and IaaS specifically. So our today's agenda will be to discuss about SQL database PaaS on cloud. So, what offerings do we have on PaaS? What features do we have? How to deploy a PaaS database? What will be the right time for your enterprise or your company to go ahead and move to PaaS? Or when do you think what features or what high availability options are available for you on PaaS so that you can migrate your current databases? So we'll start off with the session. I think you are able to see the screen, right? Can you please let me know once? Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
we are able to.
Okay, perfect.
Yes,
So yeah, what we are gonna in today's agenda to discuss about, we're gonna discuss about PaaS on cloud, how SQL database looks on the cloud. So PaaS normally stands for Platform as a Service. So with PaaS, when Microsoft has the offering of PaaS, we provide you a database and all the infrastructure which is available, like disks or storage or network. Okay, even your SQL instance, all of that is taken care by Microsoft. So it's just the database you will get, right? So if you have web applications, uh, which you think you want to migrate your database to PaaS and you want to directly host a web application on Azure and connect to the SQL database PaaS, you can directly use them. So you don't need to install anything. It's very user friendly, very straightforward. There are a lot of things on how to set up alerts, related to performance or uh, related to high availability as well. So it's very user friendly. So what we will discuss in today's agenda is about PaaS. So we'll start off with the session. Let me just move to the next one. Okay. So what is SQL database PaaS? As I discussed, right, there is no administration required, uh, similar to IaaS, but here the only difference between IaaS and PaaS is when you have a PaaS database, you don't have to manage your SQL server instance. All you have to manage is just the database. So that is that reduces your administration costs, right? Infrastructure costs as well. You have the flexibility to go ahead and just deploy the database and use it straightforward. So we have different kind of plans for different databases, and when you are using a database here, in terms of performance, you don't measure performance in terms of CPU or memory or storage, right? On PaaS, we measure, performance on the basis of DTU, right? So I will explain what DTU is. So next, what we have, we have scalability, right? So if you think, you need a database size, right, of just 1 GB as of now, but in future your organization will grow, the data will grow, right? So you have the scalability option. If you think the performance is going low, you can increase the number of DTUs for that database. DTU is nothing but the compute. It includes of CPU, memory, storage all together, right? So we measure in terms of PaaS. We don't call it CPU, memory. We call it DTU. So you have the scalability options. You have the flexibility to go ahead and scale up your databases, right, and scale up your DTUs as well, right? So we have then, as we say, right, SQL database is a managed service. Managed service as in it is totally, you don't have to, you just have to go ahead and use the database. We have taken care of everything. when it comes to the disk, you won't be able to see the disks as well because those will be hosted on our side. So it's a managed service. You don't need to worry if the disk goes offline or if something goes wrong, right? It's totally Microsoft takes care. All you have to do is use the database, which will be always available to you, right? Yeah, you don't have to purchase hardware, right? So here you don't need to buy any CPUs, or we normally measure database in terms of DTU. So all you have to measure out is how much DTU you want. If you think your performance is low, then you can anytime go ahead and scale up your database on the fly, and to get a better performance. Then easily you can go ahead and straightforwardly use the database, create tables, right? Create your own logic, scripts, stored procedures, and integrate it with your web application. Very straightforward. We give a connection string, for multiple applications, either it is .NET or some other application, right? You can directly go ahead and copy that and put it into your web app. Straightforward and easy to connect. So that's how SQL database passes. We'll go to the deployment part at the end, just before the end of the session. What I'm just going to go through is I just want to finish those slides to explain you how or what will be the SQL database pass having for you in the store. So let's go to the next slide. So if you are on SQL on premise, right, and if you want to go ahead and migrate your databases, uh, we have a option of creating a backpack file. So normally when it comes to SQL Server on premise, you normally take a backup file, which is a .back extension file, right? With SQL PaaS, we need to go ahead and change that to .backpack file, right? So we have an option to take a database backup with a extension .backpack file, and that backpack file you can easily migrate or restore it on the Azure cloud, or you can go ahead and use SQL Server Migration Wizard, right, to go ahead and directly deploy this on the cloud. So that's what we have the second option, which is SSMSW. So that will allow you to go ahead and easily, you don't have to do anything. It's just a wizard with 3-4 steps. You just have to select the database on your on-premise, and it will automatically take care and move the database to the cloud. Or either you can normally manually take a backpack file and restore it on the cloud. So easy to migrate as well. Uh, your on-premise databases. So you can go ahead and try that out. All right. So restore options, we have high availability, as I said, right? We make sure, we give you a 99.999 SLA time here on SQL PaaS. So you have different restore options available here, right? One is point in time restore. So point in time restore is we normally take backups of your databases. You can anytime restore depending on the tier you are. So this is nothing but service level tiers which are available for you. When you deploy a database, you can deploy it in basic tier, standard tier, or a premium tier. Okay. The difference is just the number of, the size, the performance you get, right? So normally premium is much more faster. So probably if you think your database is very small and you don't need to do too much of workload, then you can go ahead and use the basic tier as well. So here what we have is point in time restore. All right, up to 7 days we keep your backups, and you can anytime restore up till the last 7th day. So you can go ahead and restore that database directly. With standard tier, it is 14 days, and with premium tier, we keep the backups for at least 35 days, so that you can go ahead and restore it out. Geo restore is one more feature which we have. We have recovery time objective and recovery point objective. So recovery point objective is normally the amount of data loss you would be able to sustain when the backup has been taken, from the time the backup has been taken. And recovery object is the duration of the time to get your database up and running, or get your server up and running, web application up and running, right? So according to that, we have other three options, which is geo restore, right? right? You can go ahead and restore the database with different tiers. We have different options here. So with Geo Restore, it's 24 hours, same across all the available tiers, right? With standard Geo replication, we have a recovery time objective of 2 hours, right? So we make sure your application comes back online within 2 hours, right? And at least the data loss will be minimal, but it won't be greater than 30 minutes. And with active geo replication, we make sure your recovery time objective is 1 hour and recovery point objective is 5 minutes. So 5 minutes of data loss. So we will discuss what this means or how this works in depth, right, in the next few coming slides. So now we will discuss about recovery, right? So all we are discussing about is disaster recovery as of now. What happens if your database is, or if the data center goes offline? What options are available for you to make sure your database is always up and running? So with basic recovery, you can anytime go ahead and restore a backup copy, right? From the Azure storage, we normally go ahead and use geo replication there. We go ahead and keep those backups on the data center, and you can anytime restore that onto any Azure region. It's not just the same Azure region you want, but if you have, let's say, if you have configured that in West India, you can anytime go ahead and restore that in Central India or maybe West US. So that's how basic recovery works. Anytime you can go ahead and restore the database in any regions. All right. Now, this is what we are going to discuss about Geo Restore. So, if you've been working with SQL, you would probably understand what happens here is we have two data centers. One is in US West, one is in US East, right? We automatically copy your backups to the other data center with storage geo replication. So this geo replication is normally any geographical region. It can be any region you want to keep in, not just necessary it will be in US West, but you can keep it in any region. And then once you configure this, your backups will automatically get copied to the other regions. With standard geo replication, if you have worked on always on, what we offer here is a database, which will be always online on the primary region. So this will be a primary region, but other region would be an offline secondary, just like log shipping. You're just shipping your log files to a secondary region. So if my primary region goes offline, right, I can go ahead and do a failover, get this online here. So your database is always up and running. So if primary data center goes down, you still have the secondary DR server available, and you can go ahead and get that online. All right.
Is the
So
data
next
sync
one
with
is,
synchronous or asynchronous? Data sync.
so that one is async, standard geo replication.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because we have to keep the performance. Performance should be fast enough. Your data, there should be no data loss, so we keep it async.
We
So
have
now
in
when we
always
come to, yeah,
modes, synchronous and asynchronous. We have both modes. So is there any
correct.
option we are, we can get like this, so that,
So we have
we can,
active geo replication here for that. This
okay.
is the third option. Here you have a readable secondary, so it will be in sync, right? So you can keep
Yeah.
it in different regions, but your primary will be always, the primary replica where you can do any updates and all. But those changes will get replicated to your secondaries, right? These are the readable secondaries, so at least you can read the data if this goes down. So if your
Okay.
application is a read-only application, right, then you can go ahead and easily connect to US East. So we also have something called a listener and all, but I will show you in demo, how we can configure that, right? So this is how normally the high availability works, okay, on a SQL PaaS database. At the backend, it's always on. So at the
Okay.
front, it looks like this, but at the backend, it's always on so that we make sure your databases are always up and running. All
Okay.
right. So now most of the session we are going to focus on the deployment and the features part, right? We're going to discuss what features do we have available with PaaS database, right? So when you're comparing a PaaS database with on-premise database, right? uh, there are some features which are not supported, right? You can't have a FCI, or you can't configure an always on PaaS database. It is automatically taken care at the backend, right? So also, when it comes to changing file paths, right? You want your database location, you can't do that because you don't have access to the storage there, right? That is totally managed by Microsoft. When in terms of PaaS, if you compare, in PaaS you can go ahead and update the parts, you can move the files across different drives. But with PaaS, I mean IS, sorry, with PaaS database, you don't get that option, right? Your database files are located on the server. All you get is a database front end where you can run your queries, insert data, update and delete, right? So that is how those two things are different. So most of our session is going to be totally on the demo part, right? So that's why I wanted to finish out the slides. So let's go back, and what we will do is we'll take a look at how to create a SQL PaaS database. What features do we have with PaaS database available? What offerings are we having on PaaS database? And what else, if there is any customization part, or how can we maintain high availability on PaaS databases? So this is the option on the left hand bar, as you see, right? SQL databases, right? Yesterday we saw about virtual machines, that is IaaS, where we host our SQL servers. But this is the PaaS service specifically, where you just get an option to create a SQL database here. So what I'm going to walk through is how we can create a SQL database quickly. So let me just give a name here. All right. So resource group, as I said, right? If I'm not sure if everybody attended yesterday's session, resource group is nothing but a container where you have everything like your network, or databases or virtual machines. So here you get this option, select source, right? Now, if you're testing something out, right, or if you want to test out, we normally provide three types of options here. If you already have a backup file, which is backpack file, which you have migrated from your on-premise, and you want to restore it on the SQL database, right, then you select this option, backup. Okay. If you want to test out or deploy a sample adventure works database, you can select this option, right? Or a blank database. If you're planning to design your own database on Azure, then you can select a blank database altogether and create tables out. So what I'm going to select is just a sample adventure works database. And here, server means, uh, you can have, like many databases in a single server, right? So this is nothing but we give a server is a logical unit which will host all your databases. So as you see on the left, right, I've got three databases, right? So one server can have multiple databases. So here, if you configure the server once, right, you can use
Ujjwal,
the same
Ujjwal,
server if you want. Yeah,
Ujjwal, what is the limit for the databases within a server
I think
and the
it
size
is
limit?
200 or 2000. Let me just check that out 1 second. I think it's 200 or
We'll
2000.
carry on.
150, I think.
Sorry.
150 databases, including master database.
Yeah, I think it must be there. Let me verify and quick check that.
And what is the limit of the size?
Sorry.
Maximum limit for the database size that has to be hosted on PaaS.
So we'll get this in the resource limit documentation. So 5,000 database, sorry, not 500. Yeah. So it's 5,000 databases per server. Okay. And 20 number of servers per subscription. Right. What I mean by subscription is, when you purchase a Azure subscription, you can have multiple subscriptions as well for yourself. So per subscription, you can have 20 servers. Okay. Yeah. And DTU is nothing but, as I said, right, it's the compute. So 54,000, DTUs per server, right? And then max pools and all. So we have a lot of limitations here, right? I agree, but we still, 5,000 databases I think are more than enough for a server.
Yes,
I think.
yes,
Yeah. So
yes.
that's how we
Size
should
limit.
find it.
Any idea about the maximum size limit of single database?
So maximum size limit, I don't think so. There is some size limit, but we can have a quick check.
1 TB.
No, okay. Yeah, I don't see any document as of now on that SQL DB size limit.
It's 4 TB.
4 TB, yeah, must be there, but I don't think I've not seen anyone crossing that across as of now. Because if you have database in large size, right, we normally recommend to host it on IaaS, right? But yeah, even SQL DB is able to get that load. But I haven't come across any of our clients who probably would go, using that limit.
I've seen 1 TB is the maximum size if you write a maximum size of SQL database in Azure PaaS.
Hmm. Might be. You might be right. So I might have to check on that because this is a service, right? PaaS service, and the product keeps on improving each and every day. The limitation gets changed. Okay.
Yeah, we can
So
check in
earlier it was, yeah.
we can check in pricing tag primary
Yeah,
link.
yeah, yeah. We probably get it on the documentation, but every now and then, we are enhancing the service, right? So every now and then, when you go ahead and check the article, right, it gets updated. So they try to increase, whatever the limitations are, they keep on increasing it. So because we normally get feedbacks from the client as well, if normally the size is less, or if the number of availability or databases are less, or elastic pool, if there is any limitation, then they would like to see that limitation be surpassed. So probably our product team keeps on improving because this is on the fly change. Normally they go ahead and quickly change it, and it will change, they change it region wise, right? So they don't do it for one of the customers. So once they do it, they'll do it for West India data center and then Central India. So that is how it works. So according to regions as well, right? There are limitations. So if you're seeing something in West India, right, not necessarily that will be available in East US. So we have to check the documentation every now and then, and that gets updated. All right. So what we're going to do is, as I said, right, a server can have multiple databases. I'm just going to select an existing server. Now I'll come to Elastic Pool. Okay. I'm going to explain you what is Elastic Pool here. Okay. Let's say you have 3 databases. You are managing a customer, right? He has 3 databases. Okay. And now these 3 databases only need to be online, or they should be online, but the compute resources, the DTUs, right, which they are using for all 3 of them, right? So let's say you create 3 databases, you allocate some DTUs for all 3 of them, right? Now you're spending 3 times the money here, correct? Because you're paying for DTUs on all the 3 databases. So what we have a concept here is SQL Elastic Pool, where you can go ahead and put all 3 of your databases in a pool, right? And you can use a specified number of DTUs for all 3 databases. So let's say you have 3 databases. One database is normally used in the US time. Okay, one database is normally used in the European time, and one database is used in the India time. Okay, so these 3 are different time zones, correct? You know that the number of DTUs being used in the India time, right, is when you allocate DTUs to your India database, right, that will be only used in the India time. But the DTUs which are allocated for US time and Europe time does not get used, because at that time it would be probably very early morning in Europe, or late night in US, right? So your business will be down. In that scenario, what we offer is Elastic Pool, which will make sure, okay, you specify a number of DTUs for all 3 databases. All 3 databases will be in the same pool, and they will use the same number of DTUs which you specified. So you don't specify 3-time numbers of DTUs. You just specify 1-time number of DTUs or manage accordingly. You see the load, how it is going on, and manage. So that DTU gets shared across 3 databases here. Correct. So that is how you save costs, you save money. So that is a good feature. I've seen a lot of customers using that as well. So elastic pool, you can easily share your resources among multiple databases. Next we come to pricing tier, right? So when we come to pricing tier, as I told you, right, what is a DTU? Is a database transaction unit, right? So we have 3 pricing tiers here: basic, standard, and premium, right? As you can see, we've got this cost as well specified here, and it says, basic is for less demanding workloads here, right? And if you have a lot of IO intensive workloads, then you can go for premium one, right? So maximum data size according to the tier you select changes. So if I select basic one, right, I see 2 GB is the maximum data size, correct? Standard one has 250 GB and premium one has 1 TB. Okay. So yeah, I think that answers your question. How much database size you can have, right? But yeah, apart from this, right, there is a concept called sharding as well, where you can have multiple databases and that size gets increased. So we're not gonna discuss because that option, because that option is, as of now, rarely used, right? But I've seen many of the customers using it, but it's not much common, and we're not going to go into depth of that. So yeah, the database size changes according, and DTU size, number of DTUs you select for the database also changes. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to deploy a standard database, right? I don't want 250 GB, I'll just go for 500 MB, right? Or maybe let's say 2 GB. I'll go ahead and apply. So here you select, what kind of, storage.
One quick question here, that here that 1 TB limitation for DTU is for single database or for each and every database within that server? Suppose there are 3 databases lying on server, and we have a premium, so it can be 3 TB as maximum size is 3 TB. It should be for one single database or 1 TB each for all the 3 databases.
No, 1 TB for single database. So you can deploy
Single
one more database, yeah, with 1 TB
No,
size.
any number of database with maximum 1 TB of size under premium.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
One more doubt.
Okay. Yeah.
We have selected a source as backup. If we have selected source as a backup, so which it will require, whether it is a storage account or where we can use the local path as well to apply the backpack file.
So you mean to say you're taking the backup on-premise on SQL database? Where?
I mean,
Are you
here we
taking
are
it
going
on
to provide
on-premise
the,
or SQL database?
no, for example, I have a backpack file from on-premises database.
Okay.
So I have selected a source as backup while creating the SQL database in PaaS Azure.
Right.
If I selected the backup source as a backup, how can I provide the backup file to this portal?
So I'll show you that option as well, right? So here, when I select this backup option, right, here it says configure required settings, right?
Okay.
Once I go here, you can say you can restore it from a point in time. If you're already having on Azure, right, you can restore it from an Azure existing one, right? So this means your database is already hosted on Azure. Okay.
Yes.
This option is only when you are already having a database on Azure. From there, you can restore it to a new database here. Okay. Now the option you are asking is migrating from your backpack on-premise file to Azure. I will show you once this database gets created. Okay.
Okay.
I will show you that. That is next one. Let's finish this first. So this is how you go ahead and create a database. Okay. So let's say let it get created. It's not going to take much time, hardly a minute or less than that, right? So what I'm going to show you here is to answer your questions, right? We have an option here, restore. So this is point in time. No, this is from our internal one. All right. So this is probably from our internal one, right? As I can see, we have got point in time restore and long term backup retention. I will tell you what is that, right? I'll come to that one once I see that option. Okay. From where you can restore the database file to your SQL database. Once I see that option, it should be here only. All right. So what I'm going to discuss here is first, let's go to the copy option here. Okay. If I want to copy the current database, right, to some other server, correct? So this will normally do a replication of that database. Ideally, copy that database and restore it on another server. So you can move the current database to any of the other servers here. Okay. So this is the copy option which you have with SQL database. With restore, we have two options. One is point in time restore. So as I said, right, you can restore it from the slide when I said you can restore it using point in time restore, any restore point time within 7 days or 14 days. So normally what we do on Azure is we automatically take the backups of the database, right? So you see point in time, oldest restore point in time was 14th October. So this database we got created and a backup was already done. So we can restore from this time 4/7 UTC. All right, that is just before I think 5 minutes before we created this database. So this is how we go ahead and restore the database easily because we normally maintain the backups. Long-term backup retention you need to configure for a SQL database. So long-term
How
retention.
frequent, sorry, Ujjwal, how frequent the Microsoft will take the backups?
So it is automatically taken in the backend. Point in time is automatically taken, as I
Yeah,
showed you in
how
the slide,
frequent?
right?
It is 5 minutes, 10 minutes. How frequent it will take?
So for log backups, it is 5 minutes for differential, I think a day, and full. So this one full backups every day, but it changes according to the plan you select.
Okay.
Yeah, but here point in time, right? Normally we take a full backup here, right? So I think you'll have a backup every day, right? And what we do at the back end is we restore all the log files and full backup together. So that is how it works.
Okay.
Long-term retention is you need to configure it. Okay, you can configure it up to years. Okay, how many years you want. So if you think you just want to maintain a copy of the database, right, and you go ahead and configure this long-term retention, and then you can go ahead and select the backup. As of now, it is not showing us because we did not configure it, but I'll show you the option where to configure it. Okay, so this is how we have an option where Azure automatically takes your SQL database backups so that if something goes wrong, right, you can anytime go ahead and restore those databases. Plus, you have an option to configure long time retention, backups. So you can store your backups up to 1 year. Now, as you see here, right, this is how the
Well, one
server
question.
name.
What
Yes,
is difference and limitation between copy and export? Suppose I need to migrate one database from one server to another server, one database. Should
correct.
I use copy or should I use export? And what are the difference and limitation between
It's
them?
one and the same. It's one and the same. So this is normally automatically doing it from you, from the portal. So it will automatically, you just have to select the target server, right? Once you
Hmm.
do the copy job, right, it will automatically
Hmm.
go ahead and create the database there.
Hmm.
With export, you will have to do a restore as well, right?
So
That is
both
the
are
only.
doing the same work, doing the same thing. No? Same database is transferred from one server
Yeah,
to
yes.
destination.
Similar with
What is
this
the basic
restore
difference?
option, right? This restore option is actually doing it from your point in time and long-term retention. Point in time, you don't need to configure. It is already configured. Long term, you need to configure. So restore is different than copy. Copy is just you are moving a database to some other server.
I'm talking in terms of copy and export.
Mhm. So export, you mean to
Difference.
say export a backpack file from SMS?
Yeah, what is my concern is I need to move database from a source server to destination server. Suppose it is of 1
Correct.
TB. So what is the
Mhm.
difference between both option copy and export? What are the difference and what are the benefits in between these two options? I think ultimately
So
both are doing the same job,
same
copying
thing,
the
but
database.
in export you have some more steps, right? Because first you will export the database to a backpack file, right? Then you will restore. Copy will automatically move it to a new server or the same server you select. So you don't
Hmm.
have to do a restore there, right?
Hmm.
Export, you move the file, backpack file, and then restore that to the SQL database. So it's a
So I think
two-step
copy is
procedure.
much better option. Copy is much better option for database movement.
See,
If we
though
use
both
the
are different. If you are moving it from on-premise, right, and you don't have the database already on Azure, then you will go for export, correct? But if you normally have the database on Azure, you want to create a copy of that. So this is nothing but creating a Xerox, right? A Xerox copy. So you're creating this copy of the database in the same region or some other region.
Okay,
All
got
right.
it.
Okay. All right. So guys, we have very less time. Okay. So what you can do is you can ask me questions at the end of the session. Please note your question down, right? Because we'll have to finish because almost I think we've done with half an hour and we have to cover a lot of things, right? So what we will do is we will quickly go through options here. Okay. So as you can see in the overview, right? We have this options here, right? Server name, SQL DBA. So this is how your server name will look. So when you connect to SQL Server, right, you will connect by using this name, SQL db demos.database.windows.net. Okay. As you can see, connection strings. If you want the connection string and you want to put it into your application, right, you go ahead and select this option. You see this option. We have multiple options here. You can connect to a PHP website using this connection string. You can connect using ODBC, right, JDBC and ADO.NET. So you can just specify this connection string in your application and connect your database to the application. Okay. So I think overview part is done. In the overview, what we also see is resource utilization. How much DTU, as you can see, DTU, as I said, right? We don't measure here in CPU memory. How much DTU used in last 7 days. So we keep that telemetry up to 7 days. Post that, I think it gets purged. So you don't have that information then. So up till 7 days, you'll have this DTU information, right? Data storage, as you can see, it will tell you how much is the used amount of space on your database as of now, right? How much is the maximum size of the database? Plus you will get some options. I will come to these options which are already on the left hand side. So I will let you know what these options mean. Next is activity log. It will tell you what activities are currently going on, right, on the database from the Microsoft side. So we updated something, right? Then it said the health event got resolved. So yeah, these are just normally if you want to see what is going on my database, if you do any updates on the database, right, that gets logged here. Okay. Then we come to query editor. This is a new feature which we just recently added. Okay. This gives you a flexibility to directly connect to just like an SSMS window you have, right? When you open SQL Server, you create a new session and you can write your queries, right? We've given this flexibility on the Azure portal so that you don't have to log into your server and connect to your database, right? You can just put your password here. This is still in preview, right? It's gonna be released, so they are still testing it out and making some changes. But as you can see, right, this is a logical view of how your SSMS looks, but it won't give you all the things. It will just give you some of the programmability abilities like views and procedures where you can go ahead and create a new one, and tables as well. So if I just expand this, I can just easily run a single query of select star from sales, right, lt.customer. So, and I can go ahead and quickly get the results here. So this is a very user friendly way they introduce this query editor here, where you can view the data or edit something if required on the fly. So it's still in preview, as it says, right? It will still it will be marked as permanent once they've done the testing and once it's out. So next thing is we got this option of configure, right? So here, if you want to anytime scale up, as I said, right, if you think your performance of your database is low, right, and you want to go ahead and scale this up, okay, my performance is slow, what should I do? So you want to go ahead and scale it up, you go ahead and use this option, you go ahead and change your DTUs to 20 or 40 accordingly and apply that. It will get applied on the fly, you don't need to do anything here, right? Your workload will automatically get sustained with the number of DTUs you are adding more, right? And you would see a better performance there. So I had one of our customers, right, who normally works in the US time. He came to me saying, okay, my performance is very slow, what should I do, right? And I told him, so it was a SQL IIS VM. It was not SQL PaaS. So I told him, let me go ahead and check what is going wrong. So everything looked perfect, CPU was normal, memory was normal, everything looked like, okay, I don't see an issue here. Did you check with the Windows team once if there is any kernel level issue, right? So they had a check with the Windows team said, okay, everything looks good. So we thought of collecting a PSH DAG to see monitor SQL performance, right? And at the end of the day, very strange customer. I gave him some plans, to improve the performance because everything looked good, and he still was complaining about the performance. So I gave him some plans, and he was kind of very attracted to Indian religion and all, right? So he used to ask me on my calls, right? Okay, which God do you preach, right? I said Shankar Bhagwan, right? So he would normally get attracted to those things. He will ask me to go ahead and show those photos, right? So I showed him the photo. So he just got fascinated with that, right? How he has a snake on his neck, right? And he went ahead and put his wallpaper, server wallpaper as Shankar Bhagwan's photo. Okay. Next few days he monitored and he told me, okay, the issue got resolved. So I asked him how it got resolved. You implemented the plans? He said, yes, I implemented plan, but I kept the server wallpaper as well. Right. So it was very funny. I mean, he said, I kept this wallpaper, the issue got resolved. The moment I removed this wallpaper, the issue came back. So some customers are still religious, right? They believe, okay, what you say. So that is how we had like many funny incidents coming across where yeah, people would trust, okay, you preach this one, okay, I've kept this wallpaper. So it was a very funny incident which I came across. So from that day, he hasn't removed the server wallpaper till now. He still keeps me messaging. So it is a very funny incident which I came across. So yeah, apart from that, let's get back to the topic. Yeah, as I said, right, we got this configure option here. Uh, so as I said, you can apply, change the DTUs on the fly. If you think your server performance is low, you think you need to add more DTUs and see how the performance improves, you can do it, easily on the fly, increase or reduce. So this is the scale up option which we have, right? As I said, geo-replication on the slides, right? How geo-replication works. So to save some time, I had already configured this, right? As you can see, my primary region is West India. Okay, you can see the diagram here, right? I have two regions configured. I have same database. It's like an always on. I've configured on the backend, it will be always on. So it's like same that you are having a primary replica here, right? Central India, and you see West India, which is a secondary region, right? And the server name is server 2 here, but here the server name is SQL DB demos, and database name is same, dear Azure 2, dear Azure 2, right? Failover policy, as you can see, is the listener here, right? We got an automatic failover with listener name is listener here, that's why it's showing listener here, right? And this is a readable secondary, right? Anything goes wrong with this one, you can go ahead and fail it over. Okay, so what we're going to discuss here is we got an option of force failover as well, right? We got an option to stop replicate as well. If you don't want to go ahead and replicate, you just want to keep a database in one region, you can anytime go ahead and stop it. So this is how geo replication will look like. Your database will automatically get replicated. You don't need to worry about if your primary data center goes down. You still have the secondary database, and you can go ahead and do a failover and get it online, and your web application will be up and running. All right. So that is how we look at geo replication here. If I scroll down, you got a lot of options where you can configure other secondaries as well. It's just like a DR region where you are moving your data, right? So next we come to this option, sync to other databases. This is nothing but live replication. If you've used replication in SQL Server, right? It's like let's say you have a database on premise and you want to keep a copy of the database on SQL DB PaaS, because SQL DB PaaS will be always, it guarantees the SLA time, and it will be always available. If something goes wrong on your on premise, you still have the latest data on your SQL PaaS, right? So this option allows you to sync your on premise databases with the SQL PaaS database on the cloud. it will be a live sync. So as soon as you do a insert of a record on your on-premise machine, that records come to SQL PaaS database on the Azure. So this option is called normally data sync, right? So this I don't have a demo for this, but yeah, it's similar to replication, how you move, your current data to your PaaS live. So it will be like a connection between your on-premise to PaaS, and you will be moving data automatically. Now we'll go to advanced threat protection. This will normally give you recommendations, if there is any connections which are coming in, right, from an unknown source, or it seems it's a risk, or maybe you've logged in after a long time. So it will probably display, those here as a risk, right? Threat protection. Next is SQL auditing. Okay. So I have this enabled on the server. It's by default disabled. Auditing is whatever you do on the database, right? It gets logged. All right. So for example, I will go ahead and connect to my database. Let me just go ahead and quickly get the SSMS window here. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy the server name from here. Let's go to the server. So let me just go ahead and connect to this database. I think it might be a little bit small. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, should be okay now. All right. So on the left hand side, as you can see, right? Sorry. Yeah. So are you able to see this? Or should I maximize it a little bit more? Right? So on the left hand side, right, you see we've connected to the database here, right? All you get options here is databases and security, right? What I'm going to show you here is once you have auditing enabled, right, it will, audit everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I think our database, I'm having, as I said, right, you can have multiple databases in the same server. So I'm having two databases here in the same server, DR Azure 1 and DR Azure 2. Right now, what we are going to focus is on DR Azure 2 as of now. What I'm going to go ahead and quickly do is I'm going to create a table here, right? Sample table. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this quickly. So I've given a name of demo to the table, right? Now this table got created, right? Okay, this is a read only because it's an always on. So what I'll do is I'll create it on DR Azure 1. Okay. I'm not sure if it is okay. I'll create on DR Azure 1 because this is a read only replica of always on. That's why it's not allowing me to create a table. So I'm going to go ahead and, just quickly pass this parameters, quickly go ahead and save the table. Table name is demo. All right. I'll go ahead and quickly create this. So we've created a table under DR Azure 1 database, right? I will go to DR Azure 1 database now on the portal, right? And in this, we'll go to this auditing option, right? So as you see, right, I've got auditing enabled here, okay? And where this audit log gets stored is the storage account. Storage account is nothing but a container, where you can keep your database files or normal text files or anything, right? So this is just storing a log file in the storage account which I had created, right? So what we will do is we will audit this logs, any changes you do, right? You see that if you see the timings right here, this is according to UTC. So still, if I go ahead and just load more, as you can see, it says transaction commit completed, right? So if I want to see, what this is doing, probably as you can see, right, here we have some set of queries which runs at the background, right, and it will automatically. So as you can see, we created a table, right? Create table dbo.demo, right, with one column. So as you can see, auditing logs everything here. So if somebody on your server does any changes, right, which are not required, right, you can anytime come and monitor this auditing if you have this enabled, and you can check, what is going on, who created this table or who deleted the table. You can come here, who changed the permissions. You can come here and check this out. So this is a very useful feature. Plus we have something called dynamic data masking, right? So if I go to this database, I think I don't have it enabled there. I'll go to this database. I have clicked on dynamic data masking here, right? Now this information is PII information. What you would not like, not to, not being seen by everyone, right? You have many database administrators. You don't want everyone to see this phone number, right? Or a password, because it's important, right? It can compromise, data protection or, security as well. So probably, according to Data Protection Act, it can cause many severe problems. So you don't want this password or phone number to be visible. So you probably go ahead and use this masking feature to hide it. Okay. So this is also an interesting feature and used by many people. I've seen that. So you don't want all of the information to be seen. So you go ahead and you use the data masking. Now, next option is we come to transparent data encryption. This option by default is enabled. So all your databases are by default encrypted. All right, for security. So this you will see it will be automatically enabled. You don't need to do anything here, right? Next, we come to performance overview. So, as I said, right, when you have a SQL server, you can automatically take a perfmon, PSS diag, see what is going wrong on CPU or memory. You open the task manager and see, okay, my CPU is low or my memory is high, right? You accordingly come to a, conclusion, okay, this is a problem. But when it's on PaaS, right, you don't have the server, you just get an option to connect to the database and use it, right? As I showed you. So here, how would you monitor the performance? For that, we have this intelligent performance, blade, where you can go ahead and, monitor how much is the overall DTU here, right? So CPU or data or log IO, as you can see, how much is it? Is it increasing or is it less, right? Accordingly, you can manage your DTUs or upgrade them. So that is how you can monitor your performance here. This is by queries, if you see. So what are the queries which are consuming all my CPU in SQL Server? So accordingly, it will show you top two queries are these, right? So here, once you click on that, you'll probably get some more information, right? How much time it took, how many executions did the query complete. So this query got executed 23 times, right? Okay, it took like 0 seconds, but this one, executed like, one time. And as you can see, it took almost like 950 seconds, I believe. Not 950, but almost 1 second, 950 milliseconds here, right? So you can see, you can get the data here. How accordingly, how, you can come to understand, if my queries are, long running queries. Okay, so you can see which were the long running queries. Here we don't have much data because we just deployed the database, right? We don't have any workload as of now, but you would probably see, how much time a query took. This is normally with milliseconds, right? So accordingly, you have a custom option to customize it further, right? If you want to go ahead and, check the maximum time it has taken in the last 24 hours, or if you want to just look at the duration of the queries, or maybe the IO taken by the queries, right? You can automatically customize that. So we have this query performance inside here. Plus, we have this performance recommendation. If you enable this, right now it is not enabled. I'll show you how to enable that. But if you enable this, it will give you an option, right? If you enable this, it will give you an option to automatically, it will give you options to tune your queries. If there is any index recommendation, right, which needs to be created, or if there is an impact by a query, so that query plan will automatically get applied at the backend in the SQL Server. This feature is nothing but query store. So what we identify is which queries take longer time to run, which take shorter time to run. Okay. Accordingly, we will go ahead and show you that here so that you can automatically force it. So this is nothing but, as I was discussing, right, queries performance insight. We already discussed this. This is nothing but query store, automatic tuning, right? As I said, force plan, create index, drop index. If SQL database, you're on SQL database, right? And if we see your SQL database is taking a lot of time, right? Your queries are taking a lot of time, right? We automatically go ahead, and if you enable this, it will automatically pick up the best plan for your queries and force it. Similarly for index, if SQL Server thinks there should be an index on the query, it will go ahead and create an index so that your queries can process faster. Okay. Similarly, there is an index which is degrading the performance, right? This will go ahead and drop those indexes from your databases. Now, we normally enable this or disable this, but yeah, you still get a recommendation here if you have enabled it. Okay, if you don't want it to be forced, right, don't turn it on, but you still get those recommendations here that okay, you can implement this query plan or you can create this index, and then you can accordingly go ahead and create your own indexes after looking at this recommendation. But you won't be able to see it until your production is up and running, and you test your workload. Once you test it, right, those recommendations would automatically appear over here, and then you can force your plans and indexes. Now, next we go to a very useful feature, which is alerts, right? How do I monitor if my performance goes high, right, on my SQL database? So as you can see, right, what events you want, what activity you want, you can easily create an alert which will send an email to you on your email ID. So you can select the database and server name you want here, right? In the resource type, you can select SQL databases. By default, it will be SQL DB. Resource group, which resource you have your SQL database, you can select that, right? And let's say if I want to track events, right? So as of now, I don't see any events because there is nothing here, right? Let me see activity log alerts. No. So what we will do is probably I would go ahead and create an alert here, ideally, right? With an alert name, I can select the metrics here, right? And here, when I select the metrics, I get an option. What I want to monitor. I want to monitor deadlocks in SQL Server. Okay. I want to monitor the workers percentage, worker threads, or I want to monitor the DTU used by SQL Server, database pass, right? I want to monitor if there are any connections which are failing, yeah, or successful connections, or maybe IO or CPU used on the database. So I can create an alert here. Then I can probably go ahead and add my email address here. It will automatically trigger it on my email address. So this feature is very useful. Plus we have some metrics as well, where you can on the fly see what is going on your SQL Server. So once we come here, you can easily see if there was any deadlocks, right? So it will show you if there was any deadlocks. So if you see the time frame, it just shows you for I think almost like uh one 1 or 2 days, 1 days, yeah. So almost like 2 days, I think, yeah, 2 days. So that was on October 13. It goes from 14 here till the end, right? So you can see on the fly if there is something going wrong here, right? What is the CPU percentage, right? You can see this graph here. So that gives you an idea on the fly. This is like a live tracing, right? Right now you see 51.53, it's going back to 0. So you come to know, right, accordingly how much DTU is being used. So that is very helpful. When you see if there is a performance issue, you can come here and check, okay, if my CPU is going high, or how is the IO load going on, right? Resource health is nothing but if your database is having some issues, right? If they are doing some maintenance and all, right, probably you will be able to see it here. So here as of now it says there is nothing affecting the SQL database. So probably if they are doing any maintenance and all, you would be able to see it over here. So that is how that was the features of SQL database. Now what we are going to discuss is we're going to quickly discuss about server name, since we have very less time, right? So here when I click on the server, right, you get similar kind of features. Most of them are similar, right? But there are something here like elastic pools, as I said, right? So you can create an elastic pool, have multiple databases in that. Okay, what happens when you delete a database, right? If you delete a database under a server name, this is nothing but the server name SQL DB demos, right? Because I went to overview, I clicked on the server name actually, right? So not here, but when I go to the database, I clicked on the server name. This will take me to the server properties, right? So this is nothing but the server. If you have multiple databases in the server, and if you delete one, right, this will come under deleted database, right? Now, if you see import export history, right? If you go ahead and import any databases to SQL DB, you will be able to see that here. If you want to see your current DTU quota, right, for the whole server, this is for the whole server, right? So you can see how much DTU cores are available for you as of now, right? And plus, you got this options. When I click on SQL databases, you will be able to see how many databases do I have inside this server. Okay. Plus, this is a manage backups option, right? As I said, right, this is by default, right? When I go to the slides, when you take a standard tier or premium tier, right, it will automatically allow you to go ahead and back up the databases. So up to 35 days for premium tier. So as you can see, this is normally a standard tier, but I still have an option because that documentation is not updated, right? They have changed it to 35 days. Okay, so you still have an option to restore your database from the 35th day, which was the last one when you had the very last backup taken. So this is how you go ahead and configure backups. Now when I come to available backups, I don't see it yet, right? Because I did not take or configure a retention here. So we will come to that part once I go ahead and select that. So let me just go ahead and select this. As you can see, right, this is point in time restore. So anytime I want to restore from up to 35 days, right, I can go ahead and do that. What if I want a long-term backup, right? I get an option. I can store it up to number of years, right? I want to keep it for 20 years. Okay, so not 20 years, but it will only allow till 10 years. So yeah, so I get an option here. I want to keep my backups up to next 10 years, right? For the database. So I will go ahead and configure this long-term retention. Okay, so this long-term retention will automatically take those backups and keep it right in the storage account, and then you can go ahead and anytime restore it if required. So this is what point in time restore. You can restore it up to 35 days, and long-term restore you can automatically configure it. By default it is not configured, so if you require it you can go ahead and configure that as well. So this is all about backups, right? As I come to failover groups, right, as I said, I had created and Geo-replication, right, where this is the listener name. So if you are using always on, right, this is the listener name you have. This is the primary server and this is the secondary server. These are the server name. This is, let's say, server 1. This is server 2, right? And my failover policy is automatic, right? Plus, if you see the listener, this is what your application will use, listener, to connect. Okay, this name is nothing but your listener name when you are using always on. So this listener will be passed in the connection string, and this will be used by your application. If one of the data center goes down, this listener will automatically, your other data center, your web application will use this listener name, right? As you can see, listener.database.windows.net. Here you don't have the database name or the server name to connect. Okay, once you have the database in Geo-replication, right, it will automatically create, you will have to automatically create a listener. You'll have to specify the name, and once you pass this connection string, right, in the connection string, you have to pass this listener.database.windows.net. So if one data center goes down, your web application will automatically fail over and connect to the second one. Now failover is not automatic, right? You will have to manually fail over it. Okay, so here there is no automatic failover here, right? If something goes wrong, then we might automatic failover, but if you want to manually failover, you can come here or do a forced failover as well, right? Now you see databases within group option. We have this Dear Azure 2 database, right? In the primary server, Central India, it is primary server, right? It is online here, right? On the secondary server, we have kept that database readable. That means you can't edit it. So this is in West India region. So this is the same copy of the database, but in two different regions. So that is how it works here. All right. So that was about failover groups. Now I think, uh, one of the things I forgot to discuss is firewalls and virtual networks, right? If you have a range, right, which you want to connect, so let's say you have deployed a SQL database, and you want to connect from this range only, from one IP to another. You specify a subnet here. Okay, so you specify a subnet here, starting range and ending range, and only those machines will be able to connect to your Azure database. Okay, this option allow access to Azure services means if you have any other web application on Azure or virtual machine on Azure, right, you can automatically allow it to connect. So this option means anything on Azure can connect to my database. So if I turn it off, if I don't want any of my virtual machines or any other web applications or something to connect, to my database, I can turn this off. So any services on Azure can connect to this database if you turn it on. All right. So yeah, I think we pretty much discussed most of the part, right? Since we had to run, right? Since we had very less time, we had to run very fast because there were too many options here, and I did not want to leave, the important ones. So we almost discussed the most of them important ones. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions so that we can go ahead and answer them.
Yeah, Ujjwal. My name is Lakshman. I have few questions.
Yes, Lakshman. Yeah.
Yeah, if I wanted to deploy any SSS packages or if I wanted to configure any jobs here, we don't have any SQL agent, right? So how
Yeah.
we can
On
configure the
Azure
jobs?
SQL database, there is something called runbooks. Okay. So when you're talking about
Okay.
agent jobs, SQL agent jobs, right? There is something called runbooks which are available, right? Where you can go ahead and configure it. It's a different service altogether, but that can allow you to just it will act as a SQL agent job only, where you can configure what you want to do with the past database. So other option is there is a new feature which has come in called SQL Server Managed Instance. Okay, it's still in
Yeah.
preview phase. Okay, because the deployment time takes like 4 to 5 days. They are still testing it out, but that will certainly reduce. It is as of now, not regularly used or not available to everyone. Still in preview, but yeah, that managed instance will have these capabilities to run the jobs and stuff. So they're still working on it
Yeah,
as
the
of now on the back end.
runbook will be available on portal or it's an additional tool? How it is?
So as of now, it's still not released. I mean, it's only available for few people as of now. But once it's released, it will be available on the portal as well.
I'm talking about runbook.
Runbook is available on the portal.
Okay. Can I see that or
So you want to see
not
runbooks?
possible? Yeah, how we can configure what are the options?
I think
And
it
one
should be
more
there.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah, and one more
because
question.
yeah.
For example, in basic time, we can configure.
So you normally have to create an automation account here. Okay, then
We
you'll be able to create a runbook.
can use 3,000, right? At the same
Sorry, what was your question again? Your voice is not clear. Hello? Yeah. Yes, Lakshman. I think it was Lakshman maybe.
Well, Ujjwal Sayyed this side. I have one question regarding available backups. So can we able to see the backup files that you showed on the portal, or we need to configure something like that? And what
No,
about
no, no.
manual backup?
Backup files you can easily restore. You mean to say you want to do a manual backup of the database, right?
Yeah, one manual backup. Second question is that you shown a screen for available backups that was blank. What was that? Can you please brief us a little bit on that?
What was that? Can you come again?
You shown one screen for available backups that was blank. You said something needs to be configured. So what was that?
Oh, okay, okay. That was this
And
one.
what
I'll show
about
you.
manual backup where it gets stored?
Because this manage backups option is there, right? Right. It gets stored on the Azure data center, right? So this is point in time restore. Point in time restore is
Correct.
Microsoft will keep your backups for 35 days. Okay.
Yes.
What I showed you is, it is empty right now because we did not configure retention here. When you see available backups here, right? I don't have any backups, right? Because I did not configure it, right? So
So
what
we need to configure.
Microsoft does? Yeah, if you're keeping for long-term retention, this is for retention. So I did not enable retention on the database. As you see, right? I did not check mark this yet. And I have not selected I want my databases to backup auto, for
That
long
option
term.
is for long term retention
Long term.
available.
Correct. But 35 days, Microsoft will keep your backups. Okay, so up till the last month, right? 35 days from the date from today's date up to last 35 days, we still have your
35,
backups in place.
last second, I believe. Last second of 35 days.
Yeah, last 35 days. Yeah.
And
So
what
we
about
still have
manual
your.
backup?
So manual backup also there is an option on the SQL database, right? So here, as someone was asking me, right? I forgot. Somebody had asked me a question. How can I get a backpack file from on-premise to Azure SQL, right? Here we get an option here, import database. So as I said, right, I will show you because I was not able to find out that option. So yeah, you can go ahead and enter the database name and then authentication type. You will probably have to select the storage account from where you have to get the file. So you can upload that backpack file. As you can see, right, these are the storage accounts I've created. Okay, so if I go to this storage account, normally this backpack file, you should have it here. Okay, so you can easily use tools like Storage Explorer or AZ Copy to move those backpack files. Then you can
Okay.
import it to your SQL database on the cloud.
Okay. And one more question about database migration tool and database migration services. Can you
DMA.
brief us a little bit on that? Yes, DMA
So
and there's some.
database migration assistance is normally used when you want to migrate your on-premise database to SQL PaaS database, right? So if there are any conflicts before migrating, so what we do is we do a scan of your whole database. We check, if there is anything incompatible with SQL PaaS, because ultimately when we are moving your SQL, on-premise database, we change, we convert that backup file to backpack file, right? During that conversion, if there is any conflict, right, that DMA tools helps you to analyze and fix it. Because if you do not fix it, right, it will fail. Your movement will fail. So what we do is we give you a list of recommendations on how can you fix this. If there is anything which is not supported, right, so we give you an option to go ahead and remove those with those DMA tool, and it will help you to go ahead and migrate them later on. Once you fix
So
those,
it is
you can
mandatory.
easily convert it to backpack.
It is mandatory to have a DMA tool before migration of any size of database.
If you are moving from on-premise to Azure, and if you, I mean, it's not mandatory, but if you sometime, let's say, if you go ahead and move it, right, it might fail. So it's better you want to see, before failing, if something is wrong on your database before you move. So yeah, we recommend customers to go ahead and use that DMA tool, because
What
that
about
might, I mean, once you restore, it will fail as well. So,
database migration service?
so DMS, I'm not. You mean to say the one which I showed you in the slide?
No, that is SSMS, I believe you shown. Through SSMS we can migrate.
SSMSW. No, that is
Yes.
SSMSW, so SQL Server Migration Wizard. So are you talking about that?
Yes.
So yeah, SQL Server Migration Wizard is a tool available on Codeplex, right? Even that is very easy to use. It will automatically convert your on-premise, and it will turn your file into Backpack and move it to Azure automatically within few steps. So yeah, you can use that as well. So that automatically does the check, and if there is anything, right, it will automatically fix it. So I've
So we have
seen
to
many
install
customers using that.
SSMSW also apart from SSMS for migration.
Yeah, that is like directly if you want to migrate, if you think your backpack file is already there, not just like you also have an option. If you have a database on PaaS, right, and you want to move it to on-premise back, right, you also have an option to do that. So you have something called import data tier framework option in SSMS, where you can anytime use a backpack or backpack to move across SQL PaaS or on-premise or even IaaS. So that is the usefulness, with SSMSW, you can easily move it. That is also not a problem. So DMA is just to check, if it's going to cause any problems, while you do the movement. If there is any problems, you will have to fix that first, and then you have to plan the movement.
Okay. Thanks, Ujjwal.
All right. Any other question, guys?
Yeah, one question. Is there any DB connection restriction, like in AWS RDS, there is a DB connection restriction based on the tier. So is it the same over here? Or
I have not come across such scenario yet. But probably,
Okay.
yeah, you can connect with me on probably LinkedIn or Facebook, right? I can have a check on that and answer you on there, because I have
Okay.
not come across, I've been working with SQL almost like 4 years now, on-premise Azure and all. But on Azure, I haven't come across, because we have a lot of incidents coming in with PaaS and all. But I
Mm.
don't think there's such, issue as I've faced or one of my customer has faced. So probably I can have a check on that
Okay, sure.
if there is
Thank you.
any. All right, guys. Any more questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
guys. Yeah.
you very
Have a
much.
good day. Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.